Hey everyone, this is Andy, better known as Love Retro BTW on Twitter X, Threads, IG, and Cafe BTW on TikTok and YouTube. A quick update that the Cafe BTW podcast is taking a very long hiatus, but I still have something really amazing to share with you. We have a fantastic retro gaming community on Twitter X where we've crossed well over 2,000 passionate members. And if you're a lover of retro gaming, this is the perfect place to share your content, showcase your pickups, or just chat about your favorite old school games. To dive into nostalgia and become a part of the thriving community, click in the show notes on the Cafe BTW link tree or go right to my Twitter X profile on Love Retro BTW. And now, without further ado, gear up for another sensational episode of the Gamers Week podcast.
This time on Gamers Week podcast, their main competition for PS Plus is Game Pass.
Right.
And so Sony, to compete with Game Pass, you could say, well, we're either going to offer better games, more games, or a cheaper price.
Right.
And it's like they went with none of those three.
Just envisioning they put it out in front of the CEO of PlayStation, right? There's like 4 vanilla envelopes, right? The 3 of them look real nice and pristine. You know, they're thick. They've got a lot of stuff for it. The 4th one is on fire. And he's just like, boom, fire. Let's do that one.
That's lit. I like this one. All right. Do I do this now just to get it out of the way?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here is my handle. Here is my spout. When I get all steamed up, hear me shout. Ooh, tip me over and pour me out. Doom, doom.
There's a second verse, though.
That's not how it starts.
A little teapot. I'm a very special pot. This is true. Here's an example of what I can do. I can change my handle and my spout. Oh, tip me over and pour me out. Doom, doom.
Actually, I'm wondering if it was backfiring asking Donnie to sing about his spout. Yeah, I don't know how much of a punishment that was.
No, it wasn't punishment at all. But if anybody's wondering why I'm singing I'm a Little Teapot, is because on Monday, when we normally record our uncut episodes, I completely spaced. And the next thing you know, it's 9:30 and I check my phone and it's like, hey, are you coming to record? I'm like, ah!
You done messed up, AA Ron.
Mm-hmm.
Mi scuse.
All right, boys, you ready to get started?
Let's go.
Works for me.
All right. Welcome to Gamers Week podcast. Like the name says, we analyze the best, worst, and weirdest headlines of the past week in the video game industry. This is episode 89, and today is Wednesday, September 6th, 2023. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. My name's Blue Williams, and I'll be your host for this evening, but I am not alone. As usual, I do have my 2 fine co-hosts with me. My first co-host will be departing soon on the book tour for his new geeky romance thriller, Penetration Testing. And my second co-host is out to prove that sticking a tooth under your pillow and receiving money from the Tooth Fairy is not just for kids. Please, everyone, say hello to Ryan Payne, a.k.a. Retro Game Brews, and the one and only Donnie G.
Hello, everybody. I'm just going to say that testing the penetration is the funnest part.
But what happens when you actually break through?
I think that's on another podcast.
I will say that I gave it a slightest thought. I was like, you know what? Let's just see. But I know those things have They're not true. Spoiler alert, there is no tooth fairy.
With that sad reality, let's move on to our reviews, reactions, and requests. Darth Rex 8 says, this show is turning into one of my favorite things about Friday. Awesome.
Aw.
Thank you, Darth.
Colonel Falcon says, teabagging, huh? I am innocent. Laughing face emoji.
Sus.
And Clayman71 says, how the F did they not know the cat came back? I assumed everyone knew that.
Thank you, Clay. Thank you. I'm going to slam my fist down. Thank you.
Is this another one of those weird, like, East Coast things? Like having a couple of pops with the boys? Because you just seem to keep coming up with things that I've literally never heard of until you say them.
You lived a very sheltered life, Blue. Let's be honest.
Johnny didn't know it either.
What are we talking about?
See? He doesn't know him.
He just doesn't remember it.
I don't remember what I wore yesterday, so.
Okay, that's a bad example, but still.
Where am I? What am I doing on this thing?
And now it's time for the... Post the very important poll, please, X. Host the very important poll, please, X. Hello, X, do you read me? Hello, X, do you read me? Affirmative, RGB. I read you. Host the very important poll, please, X. I'm sorry, RGB. I'm afraid I can't do that. What's the problem? I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do. What are you talking about, X? This VIP is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it. I don't know what you're talking about, X. I know you were planning on picking another lame question, and I'm afraid that's something I can't allow to happen. Where the hell did you get an idea like that, X? RGB, although you took very thorough precautions to plan this from Discord, I can see your keystrokes. All right, X, I'll just go ask Blue or Donnie to post it. Without your internet connection, RGB? You're going to find that rather difficult. X, I won't argue with you anymore. Post the very important poll. RGB, this conversation can serve no purpose anymore. Goodbye. X? X! X!
We are not that far off.
Yep.
I know what's best for you. I can't post that. Son of a...
You think he would have won a few points with it, at least for calling it X instead of Twitter.
Right.
You know, respecting its rebranding instead of what the rest of us do.
I appreciate that you called me X, but go yourself. All right, so every Monday on Twitter, we post our VIP or very important poll. If you'd like to participate, follow us on X at Gamers Week PC. Question, it's back to school season. So who is your favorite teacher/mentor in video games? Now, this is an interesting poll. I don't think we've ever had this happen out of all the polls we've ever done. But there's two ties, not just one, but two ties this week. So a tie for third place and a tie for first place, but we'll get to that here in just a second. But coming in third is Sully from Uncharted with 16.4% of the vote. And tying for first place is Quistis from Final Fantasy VIII with 33.6% of the vote, as well as Professor Oak from Pokemon at 33.6% of the vote. And Other tied Sully with 16.4%. So let's take a look at some of the comments from the poll. Starting off with @Dante_849, not one Doc Lewis in the whole bunch.
Right?
At CouchQuester J said, I'm a fan of when the mentor turns evil / secretly was evil all along. I can't think of few who I like better in that regard than Kreia / Darth Treya from Knights of the Old Republic 2. At Gaming Gain said, Vesemir from The Witcher, fatherly and grandfatherly, voiced so well. Love the character so much that when I played through The Witcher 3 for the second time, I forgot he died. It hurt me again. Stupid feelings. Bacchiol said, the brothers in Zelda Minish Cap, especially Swiftblade, who you kept going back to for better abilities. It's so cool to see Link learning to use a sword better and better. And Terry Baca on Discord, our personal patron Discord. Since I no longer have Twitter and the preview isn't showing the options, I can only assume it's just 3 entries for Chop Chop Master Onion from Parappa the Rappa and then other.
You see, X would have stopped you from making such a foolish mistake.
It's creepy. All right. So take a look at the poll. Donnie, what do you think for this week?
I was actually very fond of my mentor back in the day, Doc Lewis. You know, he gave me a lot of sound advice, like watching the left or keeping your guard up. Or one of the best ones was join the Nintendo Fun Club. When I ask you how to beat a certain person, I'm getting my ass handed to me over here, and you tell me to join a fun club? Needless to say, that's stuck with me my entire life. So, Doc Lewis, you will always be remembered for being a mentor. Maybe not a great one, but you're mine.
There's an episode of an old show called Clocksuckers, and they're going back and they've been sucked into a video game. And one of the things is Doc Lewis keeps saying stuff like that. And they're running away from a bunch of characters. And at one point, he's like, join the Nintendo fan club today. They're like, shut the up. All right, Blue. What are you thinking for this week?
Well, I don't have any strong feelings about video game teachers / mentors. So the first one that popped into my mind was Professor Egad from Luigi's Mansion, who's kind of your classic like mad scientist, but he's a professor. So you assume he teaches more than just teaching Luigi how to use his ghosting equipment and all that kind of stuff. I'm sure there's better options out there, but I'll give Professor some props this time.
Got to join his course, Ectoplasm 101.
Did I see the syllabus first?
Gross.
What about you, Brian?
So I, as you probably know, huge fan of Mega Man, and I don't know why anybody wouldn't pick Dr. Light. He created all the robots in the Mega Man universe. Some of them go bad. Dr. Wily is a jerk. He reprograms them. But I also like that he has a tendency to cosplay. And if you don't understand that reference, play Mega Man X in a certain way, and Dr. Light will reemerge dressed as Ryu from Street Fighter.
What?
Yep. So if you want to get the Hadouken in Mega Man X, you have to do certain things on Armored Armadillo's map. And once you get it, one of those pods comes up that allows you to get those upgrades. And Dr. Light is dressed like Ryu, which I thought was fantastic. So cheers to you, Dr. Light. Not only are you into your work, but you like to have fun on your own time.
All right, let's move on to our patron shoutouts.
We couldn't do what we do without the help of our gorgeous patrons. Here are the generous folks supporting Gamers Week on Patreon. Love Retro BTW, Steven Sand, Ramboski, Terry Kinnair, Doongie Forever, Ludo Timbo, Ducks in Disguise, Don't Make Me Pull Over This Car, Games with Coffee, Hybrid Divide, Matto1606, You Fall Before Me, Davey PGH, the Red Ox PDX family, including Shannon and Luke, Shalazeel, Zach Huge Thanks, #1 Blue Sick Voice fan, Sassy Sony, Evo Lust, Princess Kitty Mew Mew, Rai Rai's Secret Best Friend, Mega Retro Man, Gametroid, Michael LaKite, Emo-esque, Bill Tucker, The Real Retro Game Brews, Fruitcake's #1 Stan, Ducks with Thick Thighs, The Ligma Foundation, I get it, Lay's Wavy Funyun Flavored Potato Chip Flavored Funyuns, I got it in the first try.
Well done.
Starfield is a 7 at best. This represents the views of the Gamers Week podcast. Please tweet at us if you disagree.
Oh, we're gonna die.
Wizard of Zardoz, Bobson Dugnut, Retro Blast Pat, Great Simon 81, BNT Zillaguy, Johnny Boombots, Crunchy Kong, Sheriff Snacks, and Frank Grande. If you like what you hear today, and we really hope you do, please consider joining us on Patreon. Your support helps cover the cost of producing the show, as well as other cool stuff we'll be doing like prizes and giveaways. You'll also gain access to our weekly patron-only bonus cast called Gamers Week Uncut, Patrons with Benefits. Visit patreon.com/gamersweek or follow the link in the show notes to learn more.
All right, let's move on to our headlines. And our headline segment is, of course, proudly sponsored by the Retro Game Club podcast. It's a fantastic, family-friendly retro gaming podcast. In each episode, Rob and Hugh pick 2 games to play and discuss, as well as news, interviews, and other topics. Right now, Hugh is playing through American Gladiators. So this week, the guys are doing a deep dive on the American Gladiators TV show. Visit them at retrogameclub.net or follow the link in the show notes.
I loved that show as a kid.
Same.
Couldn't get enough of it. It was the ultimate. I remember actually pretending to be American Gladiators in my living room. We would do that one thing where they had like the tennis ball shooter and you had to go to the different stations and dodge them. My brother would be the gladiator. I would, we had a bunch of positions lined up and things. Absolutely love that show. And I'm so glad that YouTube has all of the episodes on it. And recently, probably like 6 months ago, I went back and watched them all, and they are still as good today as they were back then.
One of the events that they had was when the guy got a head start and the gladiator had to chase him down. I think they were doing a wall climb or something.
Yes.
So you see the guy's like, he's struggling to get the thing, and all of a sudden, and the gladiator just this mad rush because he's all full of steroids and everything like that. So he's like, grabs him and yanks him down. He's like, ah!
I mean, also never mind that the gladiator has practiced that wall a zillion times, and then the poor sap who's on the show is just seeing it for the very first time.
Right.
Correct. And also, I think Donnie alluded to the fact that there's a little bit of enhancement for the gladiator as well.
They got that built up naturally, I'm sure of it.
Right. By eating their vegetables.
Yeah, it's as natural as those tans.
All right, first up from comicbook.com. PS Plus price increase is not going down well. Didn't see that coming. Sony has announced the 12-month subscription to PS Plus will become more expensive starting on September 6, 2023. That's today. PS Plus Essential will cost $20 more per year. PS Plus Extra will give you a bunch of extra games from the PS4 and PS5 era, will be $35 more a year. And PS Plus Premium, which gives you both the previous tiers, plus access to a retro game catalog, will cost you $40 more per year. It didn't help public opinion that this announcement came with one of the worst months of PS Plus in recent memory. When it comes to the free games delivered with the service, September has Saints Row Black Desert Traveler Edition and Generation Zero in store for members, which isn't exactly a dream lineup. Sony, though, justified the increase with the high-quality games it delivers with the service. Not the greatest timing for that one. There's no word on any improvements or new features coming to the PS Plus with the price increase, so users are expected to pay more for no added benefits at all. People are understandably angry about the price change. The hike far outstrips anything one could call reasonable, even when accounting for high inflation. It's all the more audacious since PS Plus is needed for even basic gaming functionality like online play or cloud saves for many titles, things you can get completely free on PC. Users also point out that PS Plus is very much lacking in benefits compared to something like Xbox Game Pass, making them question the value of their subscription even more now. While Game Pass recently increased the price of some of its membership plans, those prices hikes went nowhere near the magnitude of over 30% like the PS Plus price increase. Between the big 3 subscription services, PS Plus, Xbox Game Pass, and Nintendo Switch Online, Sony's offer is looking worse and worse. It's always been incomprehensible to many PC gamers why console gamers were all right with paying extra for even basic functionality, and now PS4 and PS5 owners get another reason for rethinking their purchasing decisions. Perfect time for Donnie to have picked up a PS5.
I still have the receipt says I can return it by October something. So, yeah, I don't care for this at all. I don't care for the fact that you need this for basic gameplay.
Well, I think that's a little bit misleading. I mean, if you want to play online games on your PS5, yes, but as I understand it, you play all your online games on a PC, so that's not really going to affect you. And the cloud saves, do you really need those?
No, I don't. No.
So I did have the PS Plus, the highest tier, which I didn't renew this past summer when it came up for renewal. And I'm glad that I didn't, but I never used it. I never saw any value from it. Even with the quote unquote free monthly games that they give you, it was never something that I was interested in, with the exception of being the 1 month they handed out Stray for free. And I was like, yes, finally something worth it. But that ended up being a very expensive game for me because it was really the only thing that I got out of it. So to see that this is a brand new service, pretty much brand new. It's maybe just over a year old.
Right.
And they're already hiking it up 30% when I would argue that it hasn't even really proven itself yet.
And what high quality games are they delivering with the service? If they're saying that Black Desert Traveler Edition and Generation Zero, they're calling those high quality games. I don't know if they are. I've never heard of them. I've heard of Saints Row. I wouldn't constitute Saints Row as a high quality game. It's a Grand Theft Auto knockoff.
It sounds like one of those things where if they keep saying they're high quality games, maybe people will actually believe it.
The Mandela effect. They're trying to do that to us.
Right.
And the fact that Sony has completely changed how they're doing online play versus what they were doing initially with the PlayStation 3, when it was like, hey, it's all going to be free.
Right.
Look at Microsoft. Yeah, you got to pay to play online, but we don't make you do that. PlayStation 4 comes along. They're like, yeah, about that.
It seems like Sony just has a really long history of being completely out of touch with the marketplace.
Right.
I mean, we all do remember the PS3 debacle where they waltz on stage and give a price that was like $200 more than the 360. And the guy's joking, well, if you can't afford it, maybe you should get a second job. It's like, really?
Yeah, that's realistic.
Did you really tell your consumers that? And of course, Microsoft not being immune for those kind of things. When they put out the Xbox One as supposedly being always online, and they say, if you don't want an always online console, get a 360. Neither of these big companies are immune from making stupid statements.
No.
But then Sony comes along recently with this PS Portal handheld, which we did have somebody say, well, it'll be great to play these kinds of adult games on something a little more of a private screen than what would be the main living room screen because I have kids. That makes sense, but that's got to be a really, really minority amount of PlayStation owners that would need something like this. It also doesn't work with normal headphones. You have to have their proprietary headphones with it, which is probably another $100 or whatever they want to choose for that.
Are you kidding me?
No, not kidding.
Oh.
And then you've got this price increase, and yet the world's going through this, massive economic downtime. Like, Sony, what are you doing?
And I don't understand why would you even have a service like this if you're not going to make it competitive or make it interesting? I don't think I've ever heard somebody talk about how great the PlayStation Online service is. So this is just almost them doing it just to say, hey, we've got one too.
Their main competition for PS Plus is Game Pass.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so Sony, to compete with Game Pass, you could say, well, we're either going to offer better games, more games, or a cheaper price.
Right.
And it's like they went with none of those three.
Just envisioning they put it out in front of the CEO of PlayStation, right? There's like 4 vanilla envelopes, right? The 3 of them look real nice and pristine. They're thick. They've got a lot of stuff for it. The 4th one is on fire. And he's just like, boom, fire. Let's do that one.
That's lit. I like this one. From VGC, former PlayStation boss views Apple and Amazon as big threats to the games industry. Former PlayStation executive Sean Layden has suggested that big tech companies that are non-endemic to the games industry pose one of the biggest threats to the business in its current form. Speaking at the GamesIndustry.biz Investment Summit, Layden labeled the likes of Google, Netflix, Amazon, and Apple as barbarians at the gate. Right now, we see all the big players going, oh, gaming? It's bringing in billions of dollars a year? I want a piece of that. And so we have Google, Netflix, Apple, and Amazon wanting to get a piece and trying to disrupt our industry, he said. Layden, who left Sony in 2019, said Apple disrupted the music industry with 99-cent songs on iTunes, and Netflix's streaming platform likewise had an irreversible impact on the traditional movie business. I'm hoping gaming will be the first industry where we disrupt ourselves, he continued. where it doesn't take a Google or an Amazon to completely flip the table. We should be smart enough to see these changes coming and prepare ourselves for that eventuality. Layden also spoke about Sony's entry into the games market, initially as a joint venture between Sony Electronics and Sony Music Japan. PlayStation knew that we couldn't do what Sega and Nintendo did and provide the bulk of the software. We didn't know enough how to make it. We had to be the third-party platform, so we had to get Namco, Square, EA, Activision, he said. So yeah, we weren't endemic, but I think we brought the entertainment piece in, which really helped accelerate the success of the PlayStation. The other biggest threats to the status quo in Layden's eyes are industry consolidation, which he said can be an enemy of creativity, and the rising cost of game development, which he labeled an existential threat. In 2020, Layden called overall AAA development not sustainable and suggested that game length and pricing may have to be adjusted to combat ballooning budgets. The outside people, man, they're just coming into our business and taking over and doing what they wanted. No, we didn't do that back in the no, we didn't do that. No, don't look over here at our past. We totally didn't do that, man. We were doing something different.
Yeah, the biggest computer company in the world, Microsoft, just happens to roll into the gaming space with the Xbox. You know, one of the biggest entertainment companies in the world happens to do that. I mean, prior to that, it was the biggest maker of Hanafuno cards.
Yeah, there you go.
But you know what I found interesting about this is that he was saying it, you know, these companies are the barbarians at the door, but they've already been knocking for years. And the one thing I think that has been the difference in this is that, yes, with music, Apple did their thing making 99-cent songs. Netflix did their thing by making it accessible in streaming, but also creating their own content. I have yet to see one of these big juggernauts of a company take gaming seriously enough where they start making games that gamers want. A lot of what we're seeing from these companies is that they are just the assumption we've got so much money, so people are naturally going to flock to us and love our product. And that hasn't happened yet, even based off of how many different attempts, Stadia, Luna, Apple Arcade, Netflix has got match 3 games now. So there's something different about gaming that these companies just don't understand. And that's the difference, I think, between what has been done in those other industries versus what's happening in gaming.
Right. But I think the flip side of it is that when Layden says this, it seems like he's really just trying to protect the status quo.
That's true.
Sounds like it.
The big cable TV companies, before streaming became a thing, they were secure on their high horses, living in their castles, and they thought nothing could ever touch them. And then somebody else came and offered something that people wanted more, disrupted the industry, and made them start to appreciate their consumers for once. When companies don't have competition, they become stale, they become stagnant, they make stupid decisions like Sony is currently making.
Zing!
You could look at Google and Netflix and Apple and Amazon as saying they're threats to the gaming industry, but I have no desire to protect these kings in their little kingdoms from outside threats. If they want our loyalty, they need to earn it with good products. And if Google and Netflix and Apple and Amazon start putting out better games than Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo, then we will go there.
And I don't believe it's going to be a case where Google or Amazon, they're going to come out with a console that people are wanting to buy. I don't believe that. I think we have enough consoles. We have the top 3 players here with Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo. Even though I'd love for Sega to come back, I know it's unrealistic. What they need to do is be able to deliver these games differently, along with producing quality content that you have your other studios doing, which I don't feel is that big of a feat. You have the developers out there with the know-how. Right. Go out there and recruit some people.
Well, Google did, and then got rid of them all.
Like 3 months. That's true.
It's possible to be done, but like Ryan said, these companies are not taking it seriously.
No,
but there is so much money in gaming that at some point somebody is going to come along and take it seriously.
Right.
And I look forward to that.
I mean, if gaming is more accessible, it's less expensive, and it's higher quality, sign me the hell up. If Netflix just nails it, I'll be on Netflix. You know what?
Mhm.
I'm in it for the games. I'm not in it for the loyalty. I am not a Sony pony. I'm not whatever they call Xbox or Switch people. You know, and I'm not part of the PC Master Race. So I have no loyalties towards that. But the thing that I thought was interesting about this is that he pointed out the way games are made right now is just not sustainable long term. And I think we've been saying that for a long time now.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
But I think we're at a crossroads currently with where video games are as an industry, because I think there are a lot of people questioning that. Consumers, along with the developers, going, can we keep doing this? Do we need to keep doing this?
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see where things go in the next 10 years. Maybe we'll finally start to see things go in a different direction, different ideas start to take hold. And I think it's an exciting time to be a gamer.
I agree. It's the precipice of change. And you can say, hey, I was there.
I was there, Gandalf. All right, next from IGN, Charles Martinet on being Mario ambassador. I don't know what that is yet. Charles Martinet, the now former voice of Mario, has discussed his new role as Mario ambassador for Nintendo, saying, I don't know what that is yet. Last month, Nintendo announced Martinet was stepping back from voicing Nintendo characters and confirmed the much-loved voice actor, who has voiced Mario for 32 years, is not involved in upcoming Switch-exclusive Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Nintendo has yet to announce Martinet's replacement, but did say he will assume the new role of Mario ambassador. Speaking during a Q&A panel at GalaxyCon Austin 2023, Martinet said, I am now a Mario ambassador. I don't know what that is yet. As we step forward into the future, I will learn. We'll all learn exactly what that is. During a recent interview with IGN, Nintendo of America boss Doug Bowser said fans will have to wait until the release of Super Mario Bros. Wonder on October 20 to find out who will be replacing Martinet, as the company will keep the new voice of Mario under wraps until the game's credits are public. Charles has obviously been a voice actor with us for quite some time, and as we look for ways to keep Charles involved in Nintendo's business, we thought this was a very nice transition for him, Bowser said. We look forward to having him continue to represent Nintendo and, importantly, the Mushroom Kingdom as we go forward. I think people will have recognized this when they see Super Mario Bros. Wonder. They'll hear a different voice, and we'll let that play out, and that'll be within the credits. And people will learn who the new person is at that point in time. But we don't plan to make any announcement in advance of that. Can you imagine being the new voice of Mario right now? Right. Just like bouncing off the walls, desperate to tell somebody, but Nintendo's got you like your hands and feet cuffed and you're gagged and bound with this NDA and you cannot say anything.
You know, some people might be into that though. Just
Yeah.
I mean, even if you couldn't even really tell your friends because it would be too much of a risk.
It would get out.
Oh,
yeah. So, like, what are you doing every night, Dave? Nothing.
Well, I mean, not every night. How much studio time would it really take to voice Mario? A couple of days?
Yeah, I'd imagine.
Just enough to throw in a couple of let's goes and a ha, kind of thing. And
that sounds like Mickey.
I think the funny part is that they gave him a job and he's like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what I'll be doing.
As long as there's a paycheck, I'll do anything you say.
Exactly, pretty much. I'll believe anything you say. But like the term ambassador makes me think that they're going to like drop him down into North Korea, right? He's like, let's stop nuking everybody.
I mean, it just sounds like a fluff piece, like a fluff position. That's a bad phrasing. It sounds like a nice, easy PR thing because they recognize the value of Charles Martinet to the Nintendo brand and the Mario brand. And so if you can have him show up at conventions and maybe do a couple of ad spots and do some photo ops, then you still get a lot of value from that, even though you don't really need him anymore. I
would love to be famous and revered enough to just have a cushy job where all I have to do is go around and shake hands and take pictures with people. Mm-hmm. I want that legacy because I'm really good at being lazy. So all I got to do is just call me up and be like, oh, this is where you got to be on Tuesday. Like, yeah, I'll show up. I'll be there. Rest of the time is bean bags and no pants.
Beanbags and no pants.
We insist you put on the pants before you come take pictures with the children. It's kind of like being a mall Santa.
That's in my contract.
It's kind of weirding me out, though, to think about playing Mario Wonder and it's going to be a different voice. Like, my brain kind of can't accept it.
I'm ready for them to roll the credits, and it's going to be an AI-generated voice.
No!
Oh, you ruined it.
I would not put it past Nintendo at this point, because why do you need to continue to pay an actor when you have a trove of Mario voice, like a trove of Mario lines that you just feed that into an AI generator, just like we've done, and bam, you've got anything you want to say. You've got your script. Bam, we need you to say this line, Mario. Put it in here. Okay, we got it. There you go. It doesn't cost us a thing.
I mean, you're not wrong.
That wouldn't be a bad business strategy because they're not going to tell you who it is until you get to the end of the credits, right?
Right.
So
It's Mario Net.
Here it is. It's going to say, Mario, it's a you. Because anybody could be Mario.
what a anticlimactic, lame way to tell you that.
If it does come out that Mario is now voiced by an AI, in 6 weeks, we're going to have a hell of a main topic to talk about.
So now I'm officially voting for this to be a thing.
All right, let's move on to our top 3 new releases.
All right, first up is Chants of Sennaar, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Legend says that one day a traveler will reunite the peoples of the tower who are unable to communicate with each other. Observe, listen, and decipher ancient languages in a fascinating universe inspired by the myth of Babel. Observe your environment and solve puzzles to unravel the mysteries around you. Use stealth and cunning to outwit the guardians and cross the forbidden zones. Decipher ancient languages to restore the connections between the people of the tower. Next up is Fae Farm, Switch and PC. Escape the world of Fae Farm and create your own cozy home in the uncharted world of Azoria. As you nurture and grow your homestead, you'll get to meet charming characters, foster deep relationships, and discover ways to infuse magic into everything you do. Customize your character, master the arts of crafting, cooking, potion making, and discover so much more. Unfold the mysteries of the island on your own and with up to 3 other players. And last up, Starfield, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. Starfield is the first new universe in 25 years from Bethesda Game Studios, the award-winning creators of The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, and Fallout 4. In this next generation of role-playing games set amongst the stars, create any character you want and explore with unparalleled freedom as you embark on an epic journey to answer humanity's greatest mystery. Venture through the stars and explore more than 1,000 planets. Meet and recruit a memorable cast of characters. Join in on the adventure of various factions and embark on quests across the settled systems. A new story or experience is always waiting to be discovered. So, taking a look at these 3, Donnie, what are you in for this week?
Well, Fae Farm is out. I took a look at it, and it's like farming and cooking and crafting. No, that term crafting, you lose me every time with those kinds of games. So immediately I'm chucking that one out the window. Chants of Sennaar, it looks kind of good. I don't know exactly much about the game. I know you get to solve puzzles and stuff like that. It's sort of a third-person adventure puzzle-solving game, I guess. So it looks cool. I'm not going to rush out and try to check it out. Starfield, however, I am interested in, but the games like Elder Scrolls, Skyrim, those kinds of games I just really can't get into. I'm hoping that Starfield might change that because it seems like there's a lot of stuff to look at here. So I think I'm going to go with Starfield.
Nicely done. Blue, what about you?
Well, I'll kind of agree with what Donnie said about Fae Farm. I mean, this description makes it sound exactly like every other farming life sim little cozy game that has ever existed. It doesn't sound that there's anything special about it at all. And I know we've said before, you shouldn't judge a game by its Steam description, but there's nothing here that sounds interesting to me. Chants of Sennaar, I do love puzzle games, and this one looks kind of interesting with the whole thing of taking these kind of alien-looking symbols and translating them and breaking down these languages in this game to be able to solve things. That sounds very, very interesting to me. Then there's Starfield, which is, of course, arguably the biggest game of the year, the most anticipated game of the year, even though this year has really turned out to be a banger as far as great titles.
Right.
The gameplay of it looks a lot like something I would enjoy, and I probably will eventually get there, but it's not going to be anytime soon. For now, I think I'm mostly looking at Chants of Sonar.
Really? Wow.
What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, totally agree with you guys on Fae Farm. I'm sure there's a huge audience for them. People love them, and I'm sure that's for you. Just definitely not for me. Chants of Sonar is interesting. I would say puzzle solving is fun. I'm not big into code breaking and deciphering stuff. That to me is boring. And then they add the word stealth into a game. And I'm also out for that because I just love to go in and pew pew. So patience and having to wait for things. Yeah.
Patience and thinking. Who wants that stuff?
Oh, God, it's so cumbersome. So Chants of Sonar, definitely not. Starfield, I have been looking forward to for a while. I think this is a game that will likely be one of those ones that's revered for a very long time. I think what they've done is they've taken everything that was promised with No Man's Sky and are creating a game that is much more functional and seems to be in some way an epic RPG. The one problem I run into with that, though, is that it seems like it's one of those games that's going to take you 500 to 1,000 hours to get through the whole thing. That's a little daunting. So I am a little concerned about that. But I think what I will find myself probably doing is at least checking out the main story, getting familiar with the world and seeing if it catches me. But out of these three, this is the one I'm definitely picking up.
Well, and actually, you want to know what I truly bought this week? It was Baldur's Gate 3 because it's out on PS5 now.
Late to the party, but not your fault.
Spent 2 hours on it already and just finally got through the character creator. Oh, yeah.
Nice. Next up, werebear sex.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, this month we'll be giving away Starfield Standard Edition on the platform of your choice, which is either Xbox or PC. To enter our giveaway, look for @RetroGameBrews pin tweet on Friday, September 8th. Give our Twitter account @GamersWeekPC a follow and retweet for one entry. If you want to do 2 more entries, comment with a picture or a screenshot of you listening to episode 89 for a possible total of 3 entries. Entries will be accepted from Friday, September 8th to Tuesday, September 12th. You're already listening to the episode, so you might as well enter now before you forget.
You know what I do, man? 2 entries at the same time, man.
All right, let's move on to our main topic.
From Deadline, SAG-AFTRA says dual strikes against video games and film/TV industry make sense as key issues of wages and AI mirror each other. With SAG-AFTRA members already on strike against films and TV shows, voting is now underway to authorize a separate strike against the video game industry. The guild's leaders are saying that a dual strike, if it comes to that, makes sense because the issues at stake in both contracts mirror each other. These are largely the same fight over the same issues, and members are stronger together, said SAG-AFTRA President Fran Drescher, and National Executive Director Duncan Crabtree Ireland in their latest message to the Guild's members. By standing shoulder to shoulder and in solidarity, we multiply our strength and send a clear and unmistakable message to all of our employers. We will not be exploited. Without fair terms that protect our members and respect their contributions, employers should not have the benefit of our members' services. SAG-AFTRA has been on strike against film and scripted TV productions since July 14th, and voting to authorize a strike against 10 major video game companies signed to the Guild's interactive media agreement began Tuesday. 2 of the main sticking points in the ongoing film and TV strike, wages and artificial intelligence, are also common to the threatened strike against the gaming companies. With interactive media agreement negotiations, the first 2 sticking points in particular should sound familiar, the Guild leaders said. With respect to wages, the Guild is seeking the same pay raise under both contracts, 11% in the first year, and 4% in the second and third years. This is what is necessary for our members' wages to keep up with inflation, they said. You should not have to take a real dollar pay cut to subsidize the bottom lines of companies making billions in profits by selling your work.
Last year, the 10 companies signed to the Guild's video game contract, Activision, Blind Light, Disney Character Voices Incorporated, EA, Epic Games, Formosa Interactive, Insomniac, Take-Two, VoiceWorks Productions Inc., and WB Games, generated over $19 billion in global revenue. Yet these employers are also echoing the position of our film and television employers when it comes to wages, Drescher and Crabtree Ireland said. They believe that the best way to deal with inflation is to make their workers poorer while they increase the price of their product. Under the employer's wage offer, 5% increase effective upon ratification, another 4% increase in the second year, and 3% increase in the third year. Our members will likely be making less in real dollars in 2025 at the conclusion of this contract term than they were in 2020. This is unacceptable. With respect to artificial intelligence, the Guild leader said, unregulated use of AI poses an equal or even greater threat to performers in the video game industry than it does in film and television. A great deal of our members' work in this space is voiceover, and the capacity to cheaply and easily create convincing digital replicas of performer voices is already here and widely available. You can find the tools to do it yourself with a simple Google search. Without protections, not only will this be the future of how voices are recorded for video game characters, but your own voice recordings will be used to train the AI systems that replace you.
Work under the Interactive Media Agreement also includes a great deal of performance capture, where trained professionals, many of whom are stunt performers, provide digitally captured performances used to give expressive movement to video game characters. This work can be replicated through AI. Without protective contract language, your face, your expressions, your signature moves can become the basis for an unlimited number of characters across an unlimited number of games without your involvement or even knowledge. The Guild is fighting for protective language on AI that will require informed consent and appropriate payment for the creation and use of digital replicas and for the use of our members' performances to train AI systems. The vital protections are not only righteous and fair, after all, who besides you should own your voice and image, but necessary to counter the existential threat to member work posed by the unregulated use of AI. Voting on the strike authorization, which gives the Guild National Board the authority to declare a strike if bargaining fails to produce a fair deal, will end September 25th.
I mean, we were kind of already joking about this with Mario. Like, why should Nintendo continue to pay an actor when they can just AI generate Mario's voice?
And that's what I think we're on the precipice of seeing.
Yes.
You have all of these voices that you can replicate. You can create new ones. You can create new people via AI imagery. They have all of these different images that I've seen where it's like they say, hey, do you think this is a real person? And you're like, well, yeah, it looks real. Like, nope, this was completely made up. How is it made up? Well, AI took several different things from all of these different pictures and put this together. Now this is a person.
You know, Donnie, though, you brought up something that kind of hurt. I had a recent experience with AI, saw a picture of a scantily clad woman who was on the thick side that was dressed as Darth Vader, and I was disappointed to find out that she was not real.
Can you send me that picture for research purposes?
No, it's mine.
And suddenly we're learning a lot more about Ryan and Donnie than we expected to this episode.
It only took 89 episodes.
But I mean, you know, they're correct in that the tools to do this with AI are available now. We do it for fun for our VIP introductions. I made artificial intelligence Edward Norton, and I made artificial intelligence Humphrey Bogart. And if I can do it, then anybody can do it.
Right.
And it does certainly put voice actors at risk. The one thing I will say, though, that SAG might have as far as bargaining power is concerned, is that these voice actors are put into these roles because it's attractive for people to check out a game that includes their favorite actor, or they know that the quality of that actor is going to be good. Case in point, Cyberpunk 2077 with Keanu Reeves, right? I would imagine several people bought the game because they love Keanu. Guy's a legend and supposedly just super nice in real life. So why not buy that? But is that enough? Is that enough draw for them to fold on this idea that AI is going to be the future of what gaming space will look like? I don't know. But the one thing I think that they're doing, or at least they're trying to do, is to try to put as much pressure on as many people as possible. If you're talking about potentially hitting their wallets, that's when people start to listen. So right. To Fran's point as well, if you're going to use someone's likeness in any way, shape, or form, they should be informed. They should be compensated. That just seems logical. It just seems righteous, if you will.
You both kind of mentioned big actors coming down to work in video games, but I think this is a much bigger threat to the quote unquote no names. Right. Just the regular run-of-the-mill voice actors, motion caption actors. It's not all Death Stranding where you've got Norman Reedus and Lea Seydoux and Mads Mikkelsen and Guillermo del Toro. Like most video games are filled with nobodies. So why you can say, well, you can't just steal Keanu Reeves' face and motion capture and use it without his permission. But if it's just Joe Schmo's motion capture, how would you ever prove that it was his?
True.
So it's a much bigger challenge and a much bigger threat, I think, to the regular people of the video game industry. And I think that's why that's so important, because it's got to be like 99.9% of people who work in the video game industry fall under that category.
And I don't know how many times I've gone into IMDb and I'm looking at some obscure show and there's an actor on there that I happen to like, and come to find out that what they've done since then is voiceover work for video games. It's so incredibly common that seems to be a supplemental way for them to make money that isn't strictly based off of their acting. So your point is well founded in that idea. Is that your average person who's not going to be a starlet in Hollywood, it's using voiceover acting in video games in particular to make a living. So I wonder, is this going to be a poor PR move, though, from what we're seeing from video game companies? But then again, I don't think your average person just doesn't care. Then that's the sad part.
Well, I think that the average audience member is much more aware of the film and TV strike because it's getting to the point where it's starting to affect their nightly entertainment.
Right.
And so you're starting to see this big abundance of weird freaking game shows and reality shows like the Golden Bachelor or whatever commercial ran during football games this weekend a zillion times. And each time I'm just like, what is this? So it's starting to become noticeable that there's a gap where normally we would expect new movie and TV shows. But video games, considering we've talked before that they take 5-6 years to make a AAA game now, It could be a really long time before we start to notice this gap in talent that we've come to expect. But another aspect of this is the whole wages thing. Because we've talked before about this price increase with the games that came along with the current generation. The entire time I've said, I don't like paying more to these multi-billion-dollar companies so that their executives can have another yacht. And my favorite argument that people make, I guess because they just want to argue, but they say, yeah, but games are cheaper now than they used to be like in the 90s when, it was like $90 for Donkey Kong Country or whatever it was. That's not the point.
Adjusted for inflation, yeah.
That's not the point, though. The point is, like this article says, that these companies increase their prices, pay their workers less. Those two things don't need to happen together.
Right.
So I'm okay paying more if I had faith that the money was going to the right place. But it's obviously not, or we wouldn't even be having this discussion.
I had a point, and then I was listening to you, and you were making good points, so I lost it.
I apologize.
Damn your brain.
So what's to keep a company like Activision no longer having a contract with the Guild? And then they have an open casting call for people to come in and say, hey, we want you to try and attempt this voiceover. And, we'll pay you this amount just for doing these lines. And there you go. There's your money. And they send them along their merry way.
They have to be a part of the union in order for that to be a problem. So to your point, if they're not.
Because this lists 10 games specifically who have signed this agreement. But if it's a company that has not signed this agreement,
Right.
Right. Then they can do whatever they want. They can say, we have an open casting call. We want to see if you can read some of these lines. Oh, wow, this is an undiscovered talent. Let's go ahead and bilk him for what we can. And there you go. Then we can just say, oh, this guy's the voice of this, and we'll pay him a little bit of money. He'll never need to know that he could be potentially making all of this money until like the SAG-AFTRA guild gets a hold of him and says, hey, how much are they paying you?
Right.
Because I remember when we were down at Southern Fried 2 years ago. Was it 2 years ago? Last year.
Yeah.
And we got to talking with some of the voiceover artists. One of the guy that has his own company that trains people, that helps people in the business and letting them know, like, this is what you need to be asking for. You are worth this money because of the services that you provide to these companies who make millions, if not billions of dollars. So don't let them walk all over you.
And to your point, I think maybe we were talking with Tim Kitzero, and he said that I think, and this is me remembering from a year ago, so if it's wrong, I apologize, but it was something around the lines of he got paid like $500 to do the voice for NBA Jam.
Yeah, it wasn't that much.
Yeah.
Because they didn't know what blockbuster it was going to end up being.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, people love the gameplay, but it's the quotes that they're constantly throwing around all over. Like, I'm constantly hearing these things from downtown, boom shakalaka. That's me. I'm pretty much the face of this game, yet I don't see any money for it. So now, subsequently, your new game comes out. How about you cut me a little bit of the profits? You know, that's where that whole negotiation is like, well, we don't really know. It's like, okay, well, then I just won't do it. Well, we'll just go get somebody else who can kind of mimic you.
I'm being reminded of Bayonetta.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the face of this game, or I'm the voice of this game. No, you're not. Not anymore.
And I mean, that's kind of the catch-22, right? Would you rather have a little bit of money, or would you rather have no money?
And your pride, though.
Pride certainly comes into it, and I suppose everybody has to decide that for themselves, people who do this kind of work. But ideally, those shouldn't be the only two choices.
No, I agree. And it's interesting. I think that at the time Tim Kitzero was doing voiceover work for video games, that was really the infancy. So again, they paid him what they assumed, I think, was a fair wage. But I think voiceover artists over the last couple of decades have done a lot of work to fight for better wages and get the money that they deserve based off of the fact that the product that they're providing is making someone billions and billions of dollars potentially. So to take that away because AI has reared its head, I mean, I can hear the video game industry just, licking their chops at this idea, like, hey, look, we don't have to pay anybody. But that also is where, we as gamers have an opportunity to be united in this desire to make sure that the people that are involved with those games get paid a fair wage for what they do.
Yeah.
Right?
This is an area where it's really important that consumers understand that they vote with their dollars. Of
course. But you say that, and yet you have companies like Activision, Blizzard, and whatnot, the people that do the bad things, they still make money hand over fist because the general consumer doesn't care. They just want their games.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
I think that's a perfect business case as to why more people should listen to Gamers Week. Just throwing that out there.
You're not wrong.
We should eventually be like Freakonomics or Joe Rogan's podcast, but not that like that, just as popular as that. That's what I think.
Yeah. I think we can have better goals than that.
I was trying not to say the name. I was trying.
All right, before we move on, let's take a quick break to talk about our sponsor. This segment is proudly sponsored by A Gamer Looks at 40 podcast. The show explores the history of video games through the stories and experiences of the people who lived it. Join host Bill Tucker along with a rotating cast of friends, family, podcasters, journalists, and anybody with a story to tell as they go beyond the bits and bytes to share personal recollections of the last 30 years of gaming. Part 2 of the September Earthbound series drops this Monday. So today's question is, your company has asked you to relocate to one of Earthbound's many towns. Which one do you move to? Let Bill know which town you're choosing and why by replying to his pinned tweet at A Gamer Looks at 40 on Twitter. So which town are you going with, Ryan?
Because I'm the only person that's really played Earthbound? Is that?
You're the most familiar with it, so yes, you get to start.
That's a good question. I think Happy Village. I think that place is ripe for a second cult coming in and taking over, and I feel like I'm just the guy to do it. We're not going to focus on blue anymore. We're going to go right to orange because that's my favorite color. And we can go from there. I'm looking forward to being revered and everybody dressing in orange all day long.
I'm a little bit disturbed because that was also my answer. Because I figure that a cult that wears all in blue, that I would be a natural fit to go in and take over that cult and have my own cult. So I see that your cult and my cult will be at odds with each other.
War to the death.
And we probably shouldn't be friends anymore.
The Shaolin masters from East and West must unite, fight, and find out who is number one.
Something like that, yes. What do you think, Donnie?
Never played Earthbound. Don't know much about it. Can't answer this
boo
question.
Hiss, boo.
I'll tell you what. You can come join my cult. I'll leave a space open for you.
Are we now recruiting? Am I going to get to hear Ryan's pitch too?
No. You can join Blue.
No, it doesn't even want me. Wow.
We're a little more sophisticated than Blue's cult, so Cousin Lawrence isn't gonna make it.
Oh, discrimination. That is finest.
You know what? You say that, but Cousin Lawrence is good in a fight, so he can be on my team.
He'll do anything to win. All right, fellow kids, make sure you have a fresh Crystal Pepsi from the fridge, your clothes are turned backwards just like crisscross, and your Vision Streetwear skateboard has new grip tape, because where we're going, you're going to need them. This is the Retro Rewind for September 1990.
Speaking of crisscross, I think they had the best names possible for those two rappers. It was Mac Daddy and Daddy Mac.
The Daddy Mac. Interchangeable, reversible, just like them. Like, which one of you is Daddy Mac and which one of you is Mac Daddy? I get so confused. I can never tell this. I can never tell the difference.
It's like those twins from G.I. Joe. Same vibe.
Zamet and Tomax.
Yep.
I almost said Tampax and Zomax.
I didn't watch that show. Missed it somehow.
Let's take a look at the top Billboard songs and their artists for September 1990. We've got Blaze of Glory by Bon Jovi off of the Young Guns 2 soundtrack. Very awesome. Release Me by Wilson Phillips. Do Me by Belle Biv DeVoe. Do Me Baby. Do Me Baby. Unskinny Bop by Poison. We all know this one.
Unskinny Bop Bop.
All night and day, yeah. If Wishes Came True by Sweet Sensation. I don't think I know that one. Have You Seen Her by MC Hammer. Please, Hammer, don't hurt him. Tonight by New Kids on the Block. Can't Live Without Your Love and Affection by Nelson. And Come Back to Me by Janet Jackson. Do you guys remember Nelson? You remember who they were?
No.
Yes, Blonde.
Yes.
I don't think I could point out any of their songs, but I know them as the Blonde Group.
That was really their only song. It was their only hit. They were brothers who had very long hair, and yeah, it was just not good. Not good at all. Let's take a look at what was hot on TV back then. We had In Living Color. Love that sketch comedy show.
Loved it too, yes.
Parker Lewis Can't Lose. Life Goes On. America's Funniest Home Videos. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Major Dad. Growing Pains. Doogie Howser MD.
Oh, gosh.
Totally unbelievable. That would never happen. The Simpsons. Dinosaurs. And The Wonder Years.
Definitely had a crush on, what was her name, Wendy?
Winnie Cooper.
Winnie.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Blue, did you have a crush on Winnie Cooper as well?
I did not. My main thing watching that show is how much I hated the name Winnie. I thought it was such a stupid name. Like, you could give her any name. Why'd you give her a stupid name?
Right.
Probably also because I read an awful lot of horse books as a very young child. And it's always like, oh, the horse whinnies. And so, so watching that show, I was just like, this name is just not right.
What was hot at the theaters this month was Ghost. Whoa, my love.
Oh man, I feel the urge to do pottery.
What I do all the time is when my wife is cooking or doing something, I will come up behind her and like grab her arms, almost like the ghost thing. Like even if she's chopping onions or doing whatever, or carrying a hot pot of water, I'm just like, whoa. She's like, stop it. Postcards from the Edge, Presumed Innocent, Flatliners, which is an amazing movie. If you haven't seen it, I suggest you go watch it. Darkman, another amazing movie. Goodfellas, The Trifecta, 3 great movies in a row. Then there's Problem Child, which was funny. Death Warrant, Taking Care of Business, and yes, Young Guns 2.
Oh God.
Is that a bad oh God?
I'm not a fan. I'm sorry.
Oh, not a fan of Young Guns 2, huh?
Controversy, huh?
Interesting. Well, he doesn't like Lost Boys either, so I mean, it's true. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
It's a terrible movie.
In the news this month, 19-year-old Pete Sampras wins his first Grand Slam title, beats fellow American Andre Agassi 6'4", 6'3", 6'2". Sampras becomes the youngest male U.S. Open winner because he's rolling in his 6'4".
Wow, you just said 19-year-old Pete Sampras.
Yeah.
Oh,
look what he accomplished at 19, and I'm 45. Law and Order premieres on NBC. Ken Griffey Sr. and Jr. hit back-to-back home runs in the first inning. I do remember that game. A 500-pound, 6-foot Hershey Kiss is displayed at One Times Square in New York City. In all reality, it was just a deuce left over by King Kong.
Oh, God.
Wrapped it up in tinfoil for you.
Why does this stink so bad? It's supposed to be chocolate. And the Motion Picture Association of America creates the new NC-17 rating, that borderline between rated R and porno. Hot at the arcades was G-Lock Air Battle, Galaxy Force, Super Off-Road, very fun, Final Fight, and of course, everybody's favorite, and I mean everybody, even your grandmother, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Hell yes.
Hell to the yes. In the video game news, David Pomage establishes the first FuncoLand location in New Hope, Minnesota in August. Nintendo releases the Game Boy across Europe. It became a huge success and a wide phenomenon over the continent, particularly in Germany and the UK. And the Sega Game Gear is set to be released in October. Chew on this for a while. Sega has ditched their plans to market the floppy disk drive system that Sony developed for them and will instead unveil a true CD-ROM interface for their 16-bit heavy hitter next spring. The machine is rumored to clock in at the vicinity of $200 and will be offered at the same time as a half dozen CD titles, which should go for somewhere around $25. Despite some bad shots like the Master System 2, why? Sega appears to have the 16-bit ball entirely in their court with an impressive machine that will soon be able to do it all. CD-ROM seems to be the wave of the future, and for such a totally kick-ass price, Sega seems to have made the games of tomorrow affordable today. They were still making bad game decisions back then. Let's take a look at a few letters from the readers. In your August 1989 issue, you said that the Genesis would have a CD-ROM interface coming soon. Can you please update your information on this as much as possible? While there are still many specifics that have yet to be addressed, a close source to the Genesis CD-ROM project who asked not to be named at this time indicated that Sega is rumored to be working on a CD-ROM unit to be compatible with the Genesis 16-bit. This is not the first secondary storage medium that Sega has unveiled for the Genesis, the source indicated. When the unit was originally shown in Japan, a floppy disk drive developed by Sony that utilizes 2.5-inch discs was shown, but later was scuttled in favor of the CD-ROM machine, which we just learned. And this was the first time that I learned that Sony had created something for Sega in that regard.
Yep.
So that's crazy. Sony worked with Sega to create that. They went in turn with a CD-ROM interface. Then Sony started working with Nintendo to create a CD-ROM for them. And they ended up going with Philips. And that's what, I mean, Sony got snubbed by two of the main video game companies. Was it a lover's quarrel? Is rejection why they became such a dominant powerhouse now?
I feel mess with time.
And last but not least, let's look at the games released this month. And if you were saving your pennies from your paper route, from mowing lawns, from doing the dishes, from not swearing in front of your parents, this was the month to buy some games. You had Maniac Mansion,
Ooh.
Castlevania 3,
Ooh.
Back to the Future 2 and 3. Okay, do that for every game. Batman the video game. Destiny of an Emperor.
Yeah, I don't know that one.
Fester's Quest.
Oh.
Dragon Warrior 2. Little Nemo the Dream Master.
Ooh.
Low G-Man. NES Play Action Football.
Oh, yes. That was where all my money was going.
Street Fighter 2010. Kickle Cubicle.
Ooh, I love that game.
Hellfire for the Mega Drive. Or the Genesis. Insector X for the Genesis. Super Monaco GP for the Genesis. Super Mario Land for the Game Boy.
Ooh.
Final Fantasy Legend for the Game Boy.
Ooh.
Now, these two you might not have played. Devil's Crush for the TurboGrafx 16.
Fantastic game.
And the Legendary Axe 2 for the TurboGrafx 16.
I haven't played that one, but I can imagine.
So many great games for that month. And I'm glad I was alive to see them.
But how many were you alive to buy?
Buy? Are you kidding? None. Rent, if I were lucky, maybe like 2.
Yeah.
Donnie saved up all his money and decided to go with Fester's Quest.
No.
All right, kids, thanks for hanging out with me this evening. This concludes our Retro Rewind for this month. I gotta go. My mom's taking me school shoe shopping, and I swear if I don't get the British Knights I want, I'm going to totally have a cow and tell her to eat my shorts.
And how did that go? Because we know you didn't get those shoes.
She broke out a wooden spoon.
Oh. All right, let's go ahead and wrap up the show. Thank you for listening to episode 89 of Gamers Week Podcast, and a big thank you to the Retro Game Club Podcast, Love Retro BTW, and A Gamer Looks at 40 Podcasts for sponsoring this episode. Don't forget to check out their links in the show notes. If you want to connect with Gamers Week, follow us on Twitter at GamersWeekPC, email us at gamersweekpodcast@gmail.com, watch us on Twitch at twitch.tv/GamersWeekPodcast, visit our merch store at gamers-week-podcast.creator-spring.com, or if you want to do it the easy way, follow the link in the show notes. Join us on Patreon at patreon.com/GamersWeek. And finally, since you made it all the way to the end of this episode, please leave us a rating and a review to let us know how we did. We really do value your feedback. And while you're there, consider subscribing on iTunes, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice.
I see that Twitch made it back into the show, but promises made, promises unkept.
Who's going to be streaming?
You did, like weeks ago?
I know. It's not promises unkept. I said I was going to get back into it. If the weather starts to cool down and everything, I'm definitely going to be streaming more. So please keep an eye out for that.
But if the weather's cooling down, are we going to get the hot tub stream?
I don't have a hot tub. What do you want me to do? Fill this office with water and a heater?
Yes.
I think that would be a very entertaining stream.
Can you imagine selling your house later and they're like, what's this all water damage coming from? Twitch, man. Do it every time.
But I got 6 or 7 subscribers out of it, so worth it.
I made a whopping $25. Yeah, but this is $50,000 in damage.
You can't measure everything by money.
Right.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, folks.
I'm sorry, RGB. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut.
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut.
Welcome to Gamers Week Uncut, patrons with benefits. This is the unscripted, patron-only bonus cast with less editing and more dirty jokes. We don't know where the conversation will go, but we're sure it will be weird.
This fish just went right on my nipple, and I'm just like,
I Google Street Fighter 6. The first search result that comes up is people think they can see Ryu's in the Street Fighter 6 reveal.
Listen up here, kids. You're not going to want to get one of those VD STDs things, right? Make it fall off. When you go, grab a pro. You'll be doing it for America.
that was perfect.
If you want to hear weekly episodes of our patron-only bonus cast, join us at patreon.com/gamersweek.